and welcome again to another episode of Dave Trippin'. So, I'll start this video with a couple of rock-solid quotes that I never usually get to roll out. And they are, "A mind can make a hell of heaven, a heaven of hell, and what matter where if I be still the same." Essentially being, in the whole essence of the video, everything I would talk about here is that perspective is so important to everything, and maybe in a place most of all with your work that you would do. So there comes a time usually when you've moved to Japan and you've started working for a while and everything is amazing and blissful to begin with, maybe a little stressful, but you're so overwhelmed by excitement that you can't imagine doing anything else. But then time lengthens, you've had a little more experience, you've had a few more ups and downs, and then mark my words, there's going to come a period of time where you will experience quite a bit of burnout while teaching. And I would then kind of give this caution to anybody coming over here to do this. Again, not as like a dream crusher or anything, it's just to be aware of a whole perspective that if you are coming to a place like Japan to get away from something, the thing that you have to realize about the world is that yes, there are different cultures, yes, there are different jobs, but people are people are people. So if you've come to escape from something, you won't escape it. I went through something like this when I was a little bit younger, not much. I went tree planting because I was like, I had this hippie dream to get out in the woods and escape, the assholes of the city, and that there would be a different demographic of people there. And there were, slightly, but the base humanity hadn't really changed. And the growing I did there was to realize that people are people are people. It doesn't matter the job, it doesn't matter where you go. And this could be said of the sort of experiences we have with jobs. So I believe that any dream job, any position, unless it starts shitty, will often go through this process of kind of peaks and valleys, right? And the thing that I would suggest then that will always carry you through these kinds of experiences, like I said at the beginning of the video, is perspective. If you start to feel like, say for example, that teaching English is not as, you aren't teaching as much as you thought you were, that the classes that you're leading, the kids aren't getting as much out of it, or maybe you're put in a position where you don't have enough of a role as a leader to be able to do so. Now, the thing to realize there is that you shouldn't bemoan the situation beyond, like, everybody's got a right to complain. We're all human. We're all volatile, emotional. And so don't berate yourself if you're going to have some complaints. We all do. I complain. I'm frustrated with tons of stuff all the time. And it's natural to do that. Don't do it too much, but don't blame yourself for doing it at all. But then try and do something. That's like, this comes in levels, right? That's what I would recommend to somebody who's feeling burnt out. First, identify, have you done anything immediately to improve the situation? And that might even work the first time. So you realize that I haven't done enough preparation or something. Then if you rededicate yourself to making creative classes, yeah, it'll be a little more of an effort, but then it'll be that much more rewarding. Now the next person along is going to say, yeah, I did that for a while, but then I just felt like at this school, it didn't even seem to matter the sort of lessons that I concocted, the sort of activities I created. I returned to this point where I feel like it's not getting me anywhere any further. So a thing I would offer for that, again, perspective, is that every year is changing, and so unless you see that you have this horrendous group of students all the way across, you're always getting new students, so that's going to change. And then finally, what you should think about doing is, if this job is just not seeming to work, but you don't want to give up on the idea entirely, what do? But you go and you look for a new job. And that is kind of the test, I think, eventually, where you realize whether it is just that you're complaining or that you actually want to do something about it. Because were that it too difficult for you to, this just looks so nice, let's get this behind me. Were that the situation was so bad that it required changing, this is your laziness gauge. Because if you really want it to change, you'll do something about it. But if you don't, then you can probably see by your own admission that you probably don't care about it that much. You're just going through what I was talking about before, which is the need to kind of vent and release the sort of like basic frustrations that we would get in any job that we have. And then there's other little things you can do, little tricks of the trade that I've discovered definitely work, is to take stock of things in your work environment and compare them. By contrast, you can often realize how lucky you are with your situation. One of the things that say, well, you're kind of burnt out in your classes and you're not feeling like you're getting that far, unless you are in something like an Eikaiwa, if you are in the public school system, you're probably going to have a great deal of free time as well. And use that perspective to think, my God, would I in any other job have this amount of free time? So there's something you can appreciate right there. You can think as well, what about the holidays you get in this job? Teachers get crazy holidays. If it's winter vacation, you get some crazy good holidays. Summer vacation, even better. You got some of the best holidays that you could ever get. And it's always the habit when we're going through the bad times that when things are rough, it seems like they've always been that way, and you say, oh, I just don't know why I can't get out of this rut. Where taking a step back, you might realize that usually that's just the effect of something feeling negative. It feels like you've been there for longer. And if you can get that perspective, you'll realize, you know what, it's probably only been like this for a week. The kids have only really been driving me up the wall for a short period of time in reality, not as long as I had actually thought. And so I'm trying to give you all these, I don't know, call it like a mental toolbox for considering different ways to adjust your perspective. I'm not saying kind of like make your own cage, but just make sure that you aren't, that you aren't doing just that. Try to make sure that the cage that you feel that you are in is not one that you made yourself. Because it never is. At the end of the day, it's never one that can be put on most people. Most of us in a free society like Japan, nobody's making you go to that job. Some of us are maybe desperately in debt, but then if you're in that job, you don't quit it immediately and you search for something beyond it as you're working. That's kind of what I did for the last little while, as I was like, this is driving me nuts, but I don't want to give up on the whole thing, so I want to look in other directions for other inspiration, for other opportunities that might arise were I to do so. And finally, had a little luck, which is great. But I do understand, I do understand it, and it was just something, again, one of these like themes I have is, man, do we all go through that kind of similar thing? And when I see people going through it, I'm like, maybe people just need that reminder of perspective, because I'll get into that, and I'll even notice it towards the end of a week. This is going to be a rambling video, so I don't apologize. Where I get to the end of the week, and you naturally catch yourself sometimes because you're worn down. It's whatever's happened during the week. You've kind of got this catch and release of emotion that you haven't been able to get away from you because you haven't reached a point of release. And things seem really, really shitty. And then suddenly you wake up on Saturday, or you finally roll out of the parking lot on Friday, and you realize, you know what? Things aren't actually that bad. It's just I had a long week behind me. And the last thing that'll add on to this is this sort of like weird, psycho, overly concerned thing that can happen to you. And again, I know that this happens to me, and I tried to touch on it a little bit at the beginning, was don't beat yourself up for being ungrateful for if you are frustrated. If you do feel like this is the weirdest mind fuck that happens to people, is that they start to feel guilty for feeling frustrated. They start to look at aspects of their job and they go, I don't like this aspect of my job. I want this to be better. But then they almost go too far in the other direction and they go, oh, well, why am I not grateful for something so good as this? That's why you should never reward yourself. You should never reward yourself and never berate yourself too much. In either direction, you end up in a really, really bad place. I love how everybody's like really nonchalantly walking by me, and then they get this like huge check over their shoulder like, what the hell is he doing? That guy is crazy. So those are my thoughts. Consider your perspective before you go and make any brash decisions, and remember always that you are the master of that ship, that you are going to make the decision at the end of the day what you want to do. And maybe that even is, you decide, well, hey, the English thing isn't for me, but think about it. Give it some time. I can say after a wealth of rushing into experiences where I'm like, no, I make the decision now, I don't consider it any further. It's usually those knee-jerk decisions that I regret most in my life. And I'm always happy once I've come to something with a fresher perspective, given it time and looked at it from more angles. So there's a little bit of food for thought if you're over here and you're feeling a little bit burnt out, because there will come a time, of course, when you've gained this experience and your perspective starts to change. And this is common, because this is something common to every job that you will ever be in, but only in the state of mind that we're in the immediate moment, we feel like this is somehow separate from some other job, and we blame it on the job as opposed to the general experience of life and change and going through any new position. Blah, blah, blah. So thanks for checking the video out. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, it would seem natural to hit that like button. If you're just arriving at the channel, why not subscribe? You can get more of these awesome rambles while I walk around running tracks near my place of residence. There we go. I got that out. Yeah, and drop a comment below. I will always try to respond to every single comment that is any kind of a question. And I fail sometimes, but I usually do. I'm doing my damnedest. I'm probably at like 85% response rate, something like that. That, or you can get a hold of me in my email, and I do see the emails in my inbox right now, and I am going to respond to those people as well, because I appreciate the time that you took the time to write a lengthy email to me. Yeah, so also check out my gaming channel. I'll be getting a Where is Xur update for those Destiny players tonight to let you know my thoughts on his current exotics and a full review. Alright, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Ciao for now. Peace.